People assign things true and errant to the person Jesus. Some people don't believe that he ever existed, and other people think he's a fictional character. They have that right. I mean, God doesn't force us to believe. Others think he was a good man who taught good things. Some say he was a prophet, but not any sort of deity who is among us. And most Christians assign a number of things relative to him and his accomplishments here on earth. But what does the scripture tell us Scripture really, really, truly did for us? The first thing that you might consider is Jesus died for the world, the whole world. Did you know that? Hebrews 2:9 says, "But we see Jesus, who for a little while was lower than the angels, crowned with glory and honor because of the suffering of death, so that by the grace of God he might taste death for everyone." Did you know that Jesus tasted death? He died, experienced death for everyone. See, the first Adam introduced death into the world by choosing to live out his own will and eat of the forbidden tree. All of us die as a result. But Jesus, the last Adam, came and not deserving death, because he was obedient, and the wages of sin is death. He had no sin, so he had no reason to die. He willingly gave up his life and tasted death for all. So we are all free from death. Did you know that? Death is the last enemy that was overcome. It's unconditional. It's a gift. He paid for the world's sin by paying the price of sin for everyone, and that price is death, when he didn't deserve it. Having paid for our sin unconditionally, God has been reconciled to the world. His wrath does not abide upon anybody any longer if Jesus' victory was true. And I said just that it was. But what else did Jesus do for the world? He lived such a life that after he died, the grave could not hold him. He overcame what holds the rest of us bound, meaning the grave. He overcame it. So even the grave, which is the receptacle for death, can't hold us. Therefore, all will be raised to life. So why? Because Jesus overcame death by rising above. His death was the payment for everyone's sin. But anyone who chooses to look on his resurrection can also be raised to new life. Those people who just benefit by his death remain, so to speak, in the grave. They don't have any life in them because they haven't received him by faith. But those who choose to believe on both his death and his resurrection are given new life. That's why Paul says in Romans 5:10, "For if when we were enemies," that means when we were full of sin, "we were reconciled to God by the death of his Son, much more, having been reconciled, we shall be saved by his life." That means that we were, the payment for our sin, which is death, was paid for, and those who then in faith look to him and his resurrection, who walk in faith in that, are then saved by his life. His death reconciled us to God, and God is no longer angry, but his life lived, and then the life that overcame the grave, embraced by those who have been reconciled, saves them into the kingdom. Paul reiterates all of this in 6 verses later in Romans chapter 5, verse 17, where he says, "For if by one man's offense," talking about Adam, "death reigned by one, much more they which received an abundance of grace and of the gift of righteousness shall reign in life by one, Jesus Christ." To bring this all home in an easy summary, Jesus died for all because the wages of sin is death. But then he rose from the grave, and that offers all a chance to really live in and through him and his victorious resurrection by faith. Is God not victorious in and through his only Son? He certainly is. Have a great week. We love you.